Thank you very much, Tasmina. I have to start, I think, with a confession. And the reality is this is a room full of politicians, leaders of public and cultural institutions, and I bring none of that here today. So I think Tasmina's invitation is what can be described as generous. But I'm here to talk about leadership. And the one thing that unites everybody in this room is that you are all in a position of leadership, no matter what country you're in, no matter what institution you're in, no matter what role you have. But what we need in today's world is high performance and effective leadership. And I would say that leadership has seldom been harder. Ask any senior leader in business today, and they will tell you that the pace of change is unprecedented. The scrutiny of investors and stakeholders is more intense, and the expectations across the board are just higher than ever. So why do these times feel so turbulent? We've talked about this over the last couple of days. The geopolitical shifts and conflict, the human tragedy that we're seeing in Ukraine and in the Middle East, coupled with the heightened tensions between, for example, the US and China, these have resulted in disrupted trade and supply chains, alongside significant volatility in energy security. And talking of volatility, we're all experiencing significant economic volatility. In many Western economies, the fallout from the pandemic has resulted in high inflation, high interest rates, and subsequent levels of debt on households, companies, and governments that we haven't experienced for quite some time. Added to that, economic growth is fragile. It's very fragile, and it's uneven, making companies hesitant around the investment decisions that they need to make because companies do not like uncertainty. Business leaders do not like uncertainty. It makes them very hesitant in deciding where they're going to make their investments, whether that's a capital investment or whether that's investment in human talent. And I love this bit. The pace of technology change. Here we are in the Robotarium, and if you ever want to see the pace of change, it's happening right here. And the digital transformation and automation, in particular in generative AI and agentic AI, are transforming industries faster than organizations can absorb, or indeed that regulation, governance, and talent development can keep up. This creates an intense and a complex environment for informed and effective decision-making. And finally, climate and the energy transition. We have seen extreme weather events in recent years, particularly violent flooding, increasing wildfires. But these have become the new normal. These physical risks, alongside the transitional risks of stranded assets, new regulation, and investor pressures, mean that businesses are caught between investor expectations for the short term and stakeholder demands for long-term sustainability. And today's turbulence is different from single issues crises of the past, such as oil price shocks, financial crisis. These are multiple disruptors all happening at the same time. They are interconnected. We've discussed the geopolitical unrest has a ripple effect across energy and food security, for example. Pace and scale of accelerated technology and climate impacts are moving faster than government and leaders can cope with. And this bit, again, is a new normal, the unpredictable. We have seen a big increase in what we call black swan events. These are unpredictable events. We could say the pandemic was seen as a black swan event, but we know we are likely to see another pandemic. For business, the biggest black swan event at the moment is cyber attacks. Here in the UK, we've seen multiple high street names really floored by a cyber attack. And this week, some of you may have noticed that Jaguar Land Rover had to shut down their IT systems after a cyber attack and told their workforce to go home. These are the times, these are the turbulent times that our business leaders are having to make decisions and lead in. So, it's little wonder that a joint McKinsey and World Economic Forum study this year found that a total of 84% of the 260 CEOs that they surveyed feel unprepared for the current wave of uncertainties, the rapid changes, and the perfect storm of risks that they're facing. And Dava put it in a nutshell very neatly. The past has gone. We knew what the past was. We understood that, but it is no more. And the future is yet to take shape, and is yet to take hold. And it's in that climate that we're asking our business leaders to make decisions. So when I'm working with senior leaders, it's this context that's very much to the fore. The range and bandwidth of issues today's leaders need to be across is unprecedented. It is the understanding of this context which is essential when framing the leadership style that will required to guide, inspire, and empower leaders and their teams to be high-performing in turbulent times. So I therefore encourage the leaders I work with to evaluate the extent to which they are leading an informed, intelligent leadership ecosystem. In other words, an active, healthy, and trusted relationships across the board, the C-suite, investors, and other key stakeholders. This demands shared intent, clarity around purpose and priorities, and agreed governance and practices to deliver timely decisions. When there's clarity around purpose, ambition, and the journey ahead, there is strategic alignment, and this strategic alignment enables a healthy discourse and more effective and informed decision-making in a highly complex world. So again, we explore the 5 C's of effective leadership: character, culture, curiosity, a constructive mindset, and courage. So character, I think this is a great word. I think it's a word that your grandparents may have used. It signifies resilience. It is an abidance to the wise truisms that stand the test of time. The character and the culture of a leader is a key component, and their ability to take smart, forward-looking, courageous even, decisions that often can provide first-mover advantage and see beyond average leadership vision and horizons. It's the strength and quality of a leader's character that defines their leadership. Culture underpins the values and behaviours exhibited by that leadership. Well, while competence is very important, and a growth mindset is something to be continually worked at and built on. Curiosity. It's my favourite. I feel there's a lack of curiosity in a world that can often feel extremely polarised. Curiosity is considered one of the defining traits of effective leadership. In today's turbulent and complex environment, effective leadership is certainly not about having all the answers, but more about being curious, understanding how to ask the right questions, or indeed the awkward questions, encouraging open inquiry, discovery, innovation, and creativity. A curious mindset encourages leaders to be more agile in responding to a turbulent and unknown world. Constructive challenge, and let me be clear, constructive challenge of oneself in the first instance. If you are unable to constructively challenge yourself, I would question your ability to authentically, constructively challenge others. So bring that curiosity of challenge to challenge assumptions and to actively seek disconfirming evidence. Far too often, we see people, leaders, taking a position and then only being willing to listen to the points of view that will confirm the position they've already adopted. Challenge isn't necessarily about disagreement. In fact, it's not about disagreement, but more about a desire to stress test decisions as they are forming to ensure that decisions are the most effective. And finally, courage. Curiosity and constructive challenge are all about intellectual courage. but there's also emotional courage, managing fear, doubt, criticism, without letting it, importantly, paralyze decision-making. Having difficult conversations with empathy and respect, being vulnerable, admitting mistakes, and showing authenticity. Above all, effective decision-making in a complex environment comes down to trust. And trust is it's a word I've heard often in this room today. Trust in leadership is so closely linked to character. When there's trust, things move faster. When trust goes, speed goes. Character and trust are essential components of effective, successful leadership for today's C-suite and boards. In today's age of artificial intelligence, let us not forget it is the human dimensions of trusted, transparent, integrity-based relationships which will enable and empower leaders to come together to make the courageous decisions necessary for our world today. Investment in sustainable economic growth and augmenting the human engagement in the ever-changing world of AI. And finally, effective high-performing leaders understand the power of human energy. When leaders and their teams are energized, they think sharper, they collaborate better, they move faster, and they deliver more. Ladies and gentlemen, I fully understand that in today's turbulent times, we can sometimes feel overwhelmed with conflicting information, confusion, a serious lack of trust, and indeed sometimes fear. However, I put it to you that with trusted, transparent, integrity-based leadership, we can create powerful organizations fit for purpose, driven by leaders of character and courage to face the challenges of our turbulent world today. Thank you.